I hope people here online as well. We are a few minutes late, but we'll be starting in about 2-3 minutes. So. And also for the audience in the room for this session, please come to the front. There are no tickets in the back. They are very expensive. In fact, they are $1,000 in the back, and they are free here at the front. So I order you, all of you, like a totalitarian leader, to come here.
No, that's okay. Yeah, so maybe just say it's okay to come in.
And it's okay to come and go in the session. So if you are busy or have to do something else, just leave quietly. No, she decided to. So I did. No, you can't.
I'm Greta.
I'm Pindi. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you too. So, are you working on population genomics or marine?
I'm a marine ecologist, but I work more on I used to do lots of population linkages and connections and things.
Yeah.
But I now do more.
Now we are getting
I look at range shifts in Australia with citizen science, so with photographs from fish and divers. And then I do more on adaptation for the fishing industry and the aquaculture industries. How do they adapt to climate change? And then I do work with psychology and media people on communication of climate change and also about eco and climate distress.
Okay, welcome everybody to this so-called special session by Snowchange. My name is Tero Mustonen, and I'm the chair of Snowchange Cooperative based in Finland. And I'll be first guiding us to this session, and then the format for this one will be very different than any other. It's a kind of a yarning circle or a talking circle where there is no hierarchy. So other than after my introduction or remarks at the very start, I'll be asking all of our distinguished Indigenous and Snowchange delegates to introduce and say a few words of what they do. And then we have an open session. So anybody in the audience willing to comment or say respectful question or make a remark, you can do that. So just feel free to, and we hope this is a welcoming and friendly session. That's why we are in a semicircle. We tried full circle, but collided with the Taiwanese governance, so we made it 50%. We also welcome online knowledge holders like Lola and others, Vanessa's mother from Indigenous Tasmanian side, and you'll be seeing them on the screen during the session as we go forwards. What are we talking about here and why this is a special session has to do, and you have been able to see that in the agenda. So I'll be giving you some remarks to guide us on how Snowchange works and what are our priorities at the moment. So first of all, I'd like to start by saying tervehdys Tao kansalle, greetings to the lands and peoples of the Tao here at the Sun Moon Lake. We met them on Tuesday on a long solidarity exchange and are very thankful for that. And also, as we heard from Hugo, we recognize all the Indigenous folks here in Taiwan, and thank you for having us once again. We have been coming and they have been coming over to Finland and the Arctic for many, many years. Snowchange is a non-profit based in Finland. We have been going on for 26 years. I'm the fourth chairperson of Snowchange, but that does imply we are getting older. So the unit has been around for a quarter of a century, and I think we are known around the world for the Arctic climate change stuff with the Inuits and our fishers and so on. But I want you to take a journey today to this session through the historical things we have tried to do and where we are now. And that's kind of the key to understanding why we have been collecting here. So when we started Snowchange in the Arctic and Boreal in the year 2000, there was great concern for climate change. We also discovered that most of the decision makers around the world do not know or understand how severe these Arctic changes are. For example, it was the Inuit hunters led by John Keogak in the community of Sachs Harbor in Canada that reported the world for the very first time to the dangers of melting permafrost, thawing permafrost. It was the Inuit hunters that documented the slumps that were thawing, and it's not often the Inuits want to voice their concerns, but they went to the COP in 1999 and 2000 to report that the Arctic is fundamentally changing. There's less sea ice, the animals are in a different place, and even the permanently frozen ground is now thawing. And these would be the same kind of observations we started to hear from many villages, the Sami indigenous peoples in Finland, our own Finnish fishing community on the ice, the Taltans, the Haida, and all the circumpolar and northern folks. And that's why 26 years ago, we tried to come together as a band of rebels or renegades to try to inform the governments and science about the dangers of climate change as it happens. And we were doing that for 10 years. So together with my colleagues, I was able to sit at the US Senate, at the ACIA, at IPCC. We went to every fucking forum you could go and try to play the set list of how bad things are. And we trusted. We really trusted. We said, yeah, you know, it's really melting up there and it will be profound. And when we met with the likes of Nancy Pelosi or others, they said, oh, that's so very important, Tero. It's of profound and essential quality, but you know we are on a 4-year election cycle. I can't do much, man. I can't do much. So we are, of course, slow in the community, but even after 10 years, even we discovered that not much is changing. Despite trying to communicate and voice the women's knowledges, the women who are the knowledge keepers, and some of the men who are still there. And then around 15 years ago, in Snowchange network around the Arctic and some of our Pacific partners, we started to think, why can't we try to do this alone or on our own? Exactly on what Hugo was saying, the trinity of cultural, linguistic, and biological diversity, and the resurgence we can still make on our own lands, in our own communities, and then continue to be a band of rebels around the world to be in solidarity and unity, because our primary engagement, our primary responsibility will be our own waters, our relatives who are the fish, the animals, the birds, the insects, and so on. And that's what we have been now doing for 15 years. It's called Biocultural Restoration. So we have been putting lots of resources and lots of time and efforts to be able to restore huge land and peatland and water systems in Finland, about 204 sites, covering positively influencing 63,000 hectares, both Sami indigenous areas and Finnish communities. And about 2-3 years ago, we started to have Canadian Quitchen Indigenous Landscapes joining SACSIM in Minnesota, US. And I am so extremely thankful for the colleagues and friends who are here today especially Betty and Yvette. Betty comes from one of our key partner communities, Taumago Island in the Solomons, and she'll be talking about her work as a women-led Indigenous focus on wetlands in the Pacific. And Yvette has been leading the efforts over there in Vanuatu with the women and men in community to try to take care of our small grants and support them. And that shows that the model works. And that's what we have tried to do. So it's been a movement, even though we do a lot of science. I have a PhD and I have sat in all sorts of funny 4-letter acronyms like, is it CCCP or IPCC? I forget every once in a while. But that's all okay. That's a tool, but it's not the living heart. And now you are in session with the people who still have a living heart. These women and men are the leaders in their places. And I'll conclude this introduction of the Snowchange work by saying that what is the final target? Why are we doing this? Why does it matter so much, for example, in my own village? I'll summarize it in a statement by saying that we have witnessed, as Hugo explained, the vast destruction of our forests, peatlands, and rivers. It's a war against nature today. It's war. But war has to end one day. There has to be some mechanisms of peace, both for ourselves, between ourselves, and the land. And if there are no humble operators who enable that peace, nothing ever changes. So that's why you'll be hearing messages of peace today. Peace within yourself, peace of how you take care of each other and the relations you have with the wider natural world. And ultimately, they do contain wisdom and capability for a larger peace that we urgently need. Thank you. And now without further ado, let's go around the circle here, and I would be liking, or I'll ask you to introduce yourself and say a few words of the work you do. If you are with Snowchange in Finland, just explain what you do, or other parts, and then if you come from our friends and allies around the world, just introduce yourself, and we'll start with one of the most profound Indigenous leaders I know, Betty, here from Solomon Islands, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Delcy Betty. I'm from Taumako community in the Eastern Solomon Islands, very remote from the capital, Honiara. And first, I'd like to thank Snowchange and especially Tero and Greta for inviting me on behalf of my people from Taumako to be here at this conference, and I'm thankful for that. I represent the people of Taumako, and we have an organization on Taumako where we work with culture and restoration of mangroves and cultural knowledge and things that we used to do in the past. And our project, we do restoration, reviving of culture and conservation projects. And way before I came in, it all started back in 2015 with the community itself with no plan thing. It's just a community initiative. And recently we have a grant from Snowchange for wetland and mangrove restoration on Taumako. And we have started the initial consultation with the chief and elders, and we are talking with people. We have 2 community meetings already, and we are identifying like-minded individuals within the community so that they can support us with and focus on the youth group to carry on this project. So as soon as I get there, maybe we'll start with the replanting and clearing of the sites. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Annukka Pekkarinen. I am from Finland, and I am maybe one of the latest additions to the Snowchange team. I have well, my professional identity. I feel like everybody can say with such certainty. What do they do? What are they? I'm a marine biologist. I'm a professional sailor. I'm a navigational officer on traditional sailing ships. I have a family business. Our family runs a tourism operation in Northern Iceland, and we are very dependent on the snow conditions there and the suitable weather conditions for our operation. And we noticed that all of that is changing. This is my husband's hometown. He has been doing this, going out to the sea and skiing in the mountains his whole life. And now in the just last 10, 15 years, everything is different that we are used to. We cannot predict the weather in the way that we used to be able to do. We cannot predict the snow conditions in the way that we used to do. So it's really, I think that's my personal view on the climate change, or how it's personally affecting me and my family. And I'm finding that even with this confusing professional identity I have, that Snowchange and this type of approach that they're doing, it's very accepting to this kind of different views and disciplinary take on things. So I'm quite glad to be able to be here today and listen to everybody. I'm especially proud to sit next to Betty, who comes from the island of really found navigators. So I've been listening to her stories this week and learning much from it. And yeah, looking forward to hear what all of the rest of the people here in the line have to say. And nice to be here. Thank you, Tero, for that.
Hello, everyone. My name is Yvette. First of all, before I introduce myself, I would like to thank you to the organizers, especially the Indigenous people in Taiwan, here at the Sun Moon Lake area. Thank you to Tero and Snowchange Cooperative for the opportunity as well. Yeah, my name is Yvette and I'm from Vanuatu. I would like to start my introduction this way. I'm a climate change researcher and currently doing a master's. And it's getting towards the end. Before I started to get into my thesis, the climate change thesis, how I get to know climate change, it's a bit complicated for me to identify a topic that related to my community and the people in my country. Basically, my interest was mostly into how to help the community and people in my country to adapt to the impact of climate change, given that we have category 5 cyclone almost every year. And then I decided, let me find a topic that will be related to how I can help the community, especially the remote areas in the islands in Vanuatu. So I went through the literature review, tried to find out who have the relevant papers to that topic, and I find this person he's from India, and sorry, I forgot his name. And then I write to him, and then he relate me to the ICC, a organization which is Hugu here, and that's where I know I came to know that Snowchange and all my colleagues here. Yeah, so once at one time we had this discussion, one virtual discussion. And then we start to communicate, and I introduced my topic, and that's where Tero came to understand, I think, interest in what I'm doing. So he supported me with a small grant project. And I started with 3 communities in Vanuatu, which is a trial first. And it's a very remote area in Evate, which is where the capital city is, my Port Vila. And I could see the response from the community, how they respond to the questions. And that's where it really, I would say it bring my interest to how I can develop my questions in the future to continue support the local communities. Basically to ensure that the questions has to be in the context of the community. Yeah, that's a short introduction. Thank you.
Ya Palingana, which is hello and welcome in Palawakani. I'm Vanessa, I'm from Tasmania. You can see that there is a couple of people on the screen up here who are zooming in from Tasmania. My lovely mother, who is an elder of the community, and my beautiful colleagues who are rangers and various people in the Healthy Country team that I now work with. So I now work with the Tasmanian Aboriginal Centre as the Sea Country Project Officer. So I'm not a scientist. I just very recently, and we say recently of 2 years ago, we noticed a huge difference in our environment around one of our islands that we collect our shells from. As a cultural practice, we make shell necklaces. They're quite beautiful shell necklaces. And we have noticed that in the areas that we collect, there is a disease. Now, we don't know, we're still in the very, very early stages of identifying what the disease is. We know that there is an algae on the kelp. We can see that there are some growth on the shells. So we are now trying to, with the help, hopefully, of Greta. So I met Greta a couple of months ago, so thank you very much. And I'm very, very grateful to be here on behalf of IMAS and CMS as a guest to learn everything that's happening around the world. I've taken a lot of information from all of the speakers. It's been amazing. And there are things that we have not thought about that we need to investigate. So it's been so, I think my brain is just overloaded at the moment. But yeah, it's going to be a challenge. We will get there. So at the moment, it's obviously, you know, as Greta was saying in her introduction about, you know, sometimes it's the government that stop us from, you know, taking that next step forward. We've been speaking to a lot of the earth sciences in Tasmania. I've made contact in New Zealand as well, because obviously the currents come from Tasmania through to New Zealand. So if something potentially affects us in Tassie, it's potentially going to affect New Zealand as well. So, and just as a side note, I do live in New Zealand, so I do have some contacts there, which has been great. So yeah, so that's our challenge, is to try and investigate this shell disease that we have with the cultural practice as a history. Our elders before Mum and you know, all of my relatives above, the necklaces were used to trade. So, you know, we used to trade the necklaces for food and clothing and other things that we needed. So, you know, to keep this practice will be so important. You can only find these shells in certain parts of Tasmania. So if it disappears, then we can't continue that practice. So we feel that it's very, very important to keep that going. And that's me.
Agoga means our language. I come from Lanyu. You can show the Hugu in Taiwan is close there, and it's Independence Island. So first I need to thank you for the Delo and the Snowchange Hugu invited our people come here. So I'm a young generation. I think about a lot of young generation here. So I think I am generation. So, and I am church person of Dow Foundation. And beside, I am teacher in the med school. So I was sharing about traditional culture because our mission and goal and care about nuclear and materials, human right, and indigenous people, human right like this. So later I will speak Chinese because it can translate translate my statement or point of view for everyone. So this is my introduction. Yes. Thank you very much.
阿個感冒，我叫谢家윤。
I'm Mr. She家玉，
谢家윤。
姓家玉。
首先也非常感谢 Telo 跟复古，让我能够参与今天的活动。
Thanks for Hugu's invitation that join the event today.
其实我从小生长在一个台风必近的一个岛屿。
I live in an island that a typhoon hits all the time.
我从小住在茅草屋，传统的地下屋，到我国中。
And the house we live is a traditional house that was kind of half below on the ground.
在没有科技、没有电视、没有气象的时代，我们透过云的变化，透过海边的这种潮汐的变化，透过身体皮肤的感受到风的冷度，来了解有台风会过来。
Without the technology, forecasting, TV, nothing, and then how we feel, how we track the change. We learned that from the feeling of our skin, and we observe the cloud, how it change.
在那个年代，老人家对整个生活的经验当中，从来没有一次就是略过有台风必近的这种状态。
And back then, the elderly of our tribe, they never miss a single time of the hitting of typhoon. We are being protected.
其实跟大家分享这件事情，是因为现在文明或是整个政府的法令进来之后，我们整个生活被变的整个环境之下，完全的依赖了所谓整个科技文明带来的冲击。
And why I'm sharing this because under the modern world, the technology, the convenience, the TV, and then it changed the way we live. We live with the environment. We live in the natural.
这个月是我们传统的非遗季，那我们全心全意在这个月份当中补足我们需要的蛋白质。
Okay, and in this month, it's a traditional event that we catching the flying fish, and that's a season that we try to collect as the flying fish as the protein source for the whole year.
在每个月当中，我们有一些传统的节庆，那你必须要用传统的部分去依序我们传统的文化。
And each month we have a very different, unique cultural events that to continue our traditional way of survive.
但我也了解，在全世界原住民当中，这样的问题一样，全部都遇到的都一样的状态。
And I know that it's not just happening; it's happening all around the world that we are facing.
我们生活的海洋慢慢缩减，我们呼吸的天空也慢慢在萎缩。
The ocean is changing, the resource is limited, and the air we breathe, it just changed. It's different.
这个其实都是各个政府在整个法令的制约之下，受到在第一时间能够感受到的一些捆绑。
And it's related to the government, the authority, their management, their regulation that somehow it's like I cannot translate. What he said was very beautiful. Sorry, like it kind of like tidying us, like sucking us up. Sorry.
那是说的，大家都只是想利用这样的一个场合，然后能够让大家了解到各个原住民当中，它整个文化的萎缩是迈向整个灭族的一种方向。
And so this limitation, this striving might lead us to the end of our culture.
最后愿大家都身体健康，谢谢。
And wish you healthy. Thank you.
Yeah, we have met before, so I just want to say I met Daryl first in 2014 on the World Park Congress, IUCN World Park Congress held in Sydney, Australia. Then I'm honored to be invited to participate in the Festival of Northern Fishing Tradition in 2018, Finland. 2023, after the COVID pandemic period, I led a delegation of Dao people attending the Festival of Northern Fishing Tradition in Finland again. And then 2024, Tero and the whole is invited to visit our small island. And then we are talking about planning the 2027 Festival of the Pacific Fishing Tradition. Yep, that's first. Thank you.
My name's Hal or Hannibal. I'm from the UK. I've worked with, the reason I'm here is that I've worked with Snowchange for 10 years or so now. Very fortunate to be here with everyone and to have traveled to many of your homes, to have fished with some of you. Snowchange is always encouraging those who work for it, like Annika and myself, that we should sort of drop our buckets where we are. There's enormous amounts we can do from those kind of poles of global power to be supportive of our Indigenous colleagues, but ultimately sustaining this work in the long term, especially in the context of the extremely large and overwhelming forces that kind of come against this kind of work, that has to be sustained by things we do at home. So very much inspired by everybody here, but in a very different context. I also work on a nature restoration project specifically with youth and intergenerational communities in the UK. And it's one of the most nature depleted nations in the world, which is perhaps no surprise given the length of heavy land use that's happened there. But there are still things to work on, things to build with, and we're really embracing this notion of the biocultural in restoration and trying to understand what does that mean in such a disrupted context, where really in terms of thinking about governance systems that are attuned to specific wild landscapes, we're talking about echoes of echoes. And one of those echoes that I'll bring into the room today is that one of the rivers that we're particularly working on at a place called Pen Pont, which means head of the bridge in Welsh, is the River Usk. And we know that as little as 100 years ago, there were hundreds of thousands of salmon ascending the Usk every year. And now we're down some years into just above single figures. This is the context we find, and it's where we also find this common ground. And I think I've been very appreciative. I think I've spent most of my professional life trying to get away from statistics, but it's actually been like quite interesting to hear from people who really know what they're talking about with statistics and apply it to something that feels meaningful. So thank you everyone. For an anthropologist, it's been pretty mind-blowing, but very useful. And I think one thing that's become clear is that there's a lot of conversation about interdisciplinarity, and I think the talks that have resonated with me here have been the ones that have definitely brought that in very concrete ways. But I think we need to drastically expand which disciplines we consider disciplines outside of the academy, you know, farmers, fishers, the discipline, the knowledge that it takes to be in those places, making a living in those places, particularly in ways that are contributive, restorative and non-extractive, is just an immense world of knowledge that doesn't often come into these spaces in these rooms. So yeah, just a preemptive thank you to the shell gatherers, the sailors, the fishers and everybody who's kind of bringing those disciplines today. It's very unique. Thank you.
Thank you all.
I suggest that we should also get down. Yes.
Thank you all here in the semicircle, and it gets even better. We get so many folks here, so I'm very pleased to see online our brothers and sisters, Dave and Echo and everybody from Aotearoa, New Zealand, and of course the folks from Tasmania, Indigenous Tasmanians. So maybe we can have a quick shout out or hello from Aotearoa and Tasmania. If you can say a few words to introduce yourself. Thank you.
Well, kia ora tātou katoa. Tāwhiri mai ngā hua te taiao mai Papatūānuku.
Well, let's hear from the Maori first.
Kia ora. Can you hear us?
Can you hear us?
Can you hear us?
Yeah, they are trying to pump up the volume. Just a second.
Bye.
We can hear you a little bit.
Speak loud.
Now it works. Yep, go ahead.
Kia ora tiro. Is that good?
That's good.
Oh, ka pai. Tāwhiri mai ngā hua o te taiao mai Papatūānuku e takato nei. Kia rangi nui e tū o nei. Tūturu whakamaua kia tīna.
Tīna.
Haumi e hui e.
Tai ki e.
Kia rātou kua wheturangitia ngā mate huhua o koutou o mātou. Ko wehi te pō. He hōhonu te aroha kia rātou. E tangi tonu. A rātou kia rātou, a tātou, a kia tātou, a tihei Māori ora. E oku rangatira o te motu. He iwi taki o te ao. Tēnei te mihi ngākau kia koutou. Nā reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā rā tātou katoa. Hello, everybody. Lovely to be online. My name is David Johnston, with some of our whānau of Ngāti Apa ki te rātō from Aotearoa, New Zealand. Just want to acknowledge and firstly apologise that we're not there in person, but lovely to see you in use of technology. Before I hand over, just to quickly introduce our team here today, I just wanted to share in my few words that I acknowledged Sky Father and Earth Mother and all of us in between. And although we're not there from Aotearoa in person today, through the breeze you'll feel us in the connection with the wind. So if there's a little draft there, that's us. I also want to acknowledge our ancestors who have fought hard so that we could be here in this world today, and so that we can stand and collectively do the best that we can to look after our land, our whenua, our sky, and everything in between. Nā reira, I also acknowledge all of our Indigenous whānau, our Indigenous family, our connections in the room and everywhere. And so we are very humbled to come through the TV, the technology, but also really grateful of our relationship that we have with Snowchange, and hope to do the same with everyone as well. So thank you, everybody. I hope I haven't spoken too long, but I'm going to hand over to Echo and then Kelly. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Ki ngā awa, ki ngā maunga, ki ngā kaitiaki o te ao nei, tēnā rā tātou katoa. Ko ai au, ko Iko Hirewini tōku ingoa, he uri au no Taranaki mai te waka o Aotea. Nō reira, e rere anga ngā mihi nui ki a koutou katoa ki Taiwan. So hello everyone, my name is Iko Hirewini and I have the privilege of working for a beautiful iwi trust based in Nelson, New Zealand, Ngā Tiapa ki te rā tō. I work in the environmental space as the tile advisor, so environmental advisor, along with my colleague here, Kelly. And it's the best job in the world where we get to do beautiful work, with the environment, with our animals, flora and fauna, and restoring and looking after and being kaitiaki of our treasured gifts. So I also just want to say thank you so much to Snowchange. So 2 years ago, I had the privilege of meeting Snowchange and specifically Tero, and he has been a big support in one of our major projects to date, which was restoring a small wetland out in the Marlborough Sounds. And through the support of Snowchange, we were able to plant over 1,500 native plants back into our wetland, which was significant for our people. And Snowchange is further supporting our restoration program. And we hope to continue this beautiful relationship. And we'll hopefully see you at the next conference in person. We're really excited. And just a big thank you. And it's been beautiful to meet you all through the screen. Ngā mihi. I'll just pass on to Kelly.
Kia ora koutou, ko ai au, ko Kelly Hayes tōku ingoa, he uri ahau no Ngāti Apa ki te rātoa, Ngāti Kuia, Rangitāne, Ngāti Kuata, Ngāi Tahu, Ngā Iwi. So kia ora, my name is Kelly and I work in the environmental space with Iko, and I am new in this space but with my whakapapa, so my connections here through my family, I am able to bring all the knowledge back that I have been gathering to then support all these beautiful projects and things that we have. And we've got some amazing things coming up, and big mihi to Snowchange and the beautiful team and welcoming us in. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Maori lands. Thank you. What a wonderful welcome, and thank you for taking the time to join us and send the breeze to cool us down. We appreciate that, at least we from the Boreal and the Arctic. Over to Tasmania, do folks want to yarn and introduce yourselves on screen and just say who you are, and then we continue here.
Fiona first.
Hi, it's a bit echoey. I'm Fiona Ma from Tairicha, which are the islands off the northeast coast of Tasmania in Australia, which is in the southeast. I work for the Healthy Country Unit with the Tasmanian Aboriginal Centre as a Women's Sea Country Ranger, working to have our proposed Indigenous protected our Sea Country IPA dedicated in Tasmania in the hope of protecting our community, culture and country. Really interested to talk to anyone up in the Arctic area about shearwaters. We have the biggest muttonbird rookeries in the world. This is where they come to breed. We can be caring for our cultural practices and resources here on our country, but once these migratory species leave, we don't know what's going on for them in other parts of the world. And I think, that's where Snowchange, I like their philosophy in connecting up Indigenous communities to share knowledge across the world for protection of our species. So that's me. Alice?
Yeah, my name's Alice Wise. I'm also a sea country ranger here in Lutruwita, Tasmania. I live in Lutruwita but work out in Tyricha, which is the Furner Islands where Fee lives. So we're working towards a proposed sea country IPA around the Furno Sea Country and then down to Lutruwita, Bukalina, which is the northeast part of Lutruwita. We're doing a lot of different projects. We did a tracking project with Eula, looking at where they're feeding, because they're important cultural species for us. And then also we work with Vanessa and with the shells, helping to protect our shells stringing and see what's going on with a changing environment. And also we do some work with different kelps and other cultural resources. So thank you for having us. It's been great to hear everybody's where everyone's from and what everyone's up to, and thankful to be here.
Thank you. May we hear then from the rest?
We've got two.
Hello,
Lola.
I'm Auntie Lola Greeno. Come from those islands from the northeast. My homeland, I was born on Cape Barren Island and lived there for a young child and then moved to another island, Flinders Island, to go to school and get married and have my two children, Vanessa and Dean, and learnt the traditional culture of shell necklace making from my mother. And that goes back to Cape Barren Island, where our main Aboriginal families, where this stems from, and we don't know how far it goes back. But we're concerned about it, but I'm very proud of this team of women, of Fiona and Alice and Zoe and all the crew working on this IPA project. And my daughter Vanessa has now been involved in part of that. It's a big thing, and it's nice to hear the voices from all around the world of what's happening to our sea country and our land, that it's not something that we can easily fix. And so lots of conversations and lots of discussions, I'm sure, over this time will help us feel more confident towards what we can do. And hopefully that, Fiona and Alice can attend conferences in the future. But I want to thank Greta also for making this possible for us to be connected to you today. And of course, the Snowchange people, it's very important to bring people together with lots of knowledge and share our experiences. And we have lots of stories, and we've done a lot on this, especially through the Tasmanian Aboriginal Centre. And that comes under a project called Sea Country, and there's lots of individual programs under that. And so I'm very proud to see that. And Zoe Cousins, our coordinator, has done a huge amount of work and great work with our women and young men, the rangers. So, thank you so much for the connection, and hopefully Vanessa's absorbed so much now she'll be able to come home and have a rest and tell me about it. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And please.
Thanks, Auntie Lola. I won't make a big introduction for myself because I think others have said quite a lot there. We are proposing a large sea country Indigenous protected area here in Lutruwita in the northeast, extending over waters that are managed by the provincial government, the state government of Tasmania, and the federal government of Australia, the Commonwealth. And that area, of course, was once land back before before the ice age ended and the sea levels rose. So we know that that area was lived in, and it's been a country that has supported Palawa people for thousands of generations. And so the story of the Palawa connection to the sea country that we're trying to protect is a very ancient one and a very deep one. And so our work is funded through the federal government of Australia. If we are able to dedicate our Indigenous protected area, it will provide ongoing support for the types of programs that we've been running over the last few years. So we've developed a management plan, which now we have to consult all the other stakeholders on, so the fishermen and all of those people that may well not be supporters of what we want to do, but ultimately we don't have any rights recognised through a dedication of an IPA. Really, it just facilitates the community being able to really build that capacity and have that on-ground presence to care for country. So it's been a really exciting few years and also overwhelming. We have been a very, very ambitious team, and that remains the case. And I really am grateful to Greta for extending the invitation to Vanessa to attend this conference, but also for organising this Zoom link so we could all join. Really great to have the opportunity to connect with others internationally that are also facing the same challenges that we are here in Lutruwita. Thank you.
Thank you. And we had a new delegate joining. Could you please introduce yourself briefly to the room and the event?
It's Monique.
Monique.
I was going to say, is that me? Yeah, everyone. I am joining in from Piura-Kituna, some returned Aboriginal land. I work with Fiona and Alice and Zoe and I'm also Vanessa's cousin. So it's really great to be here. I suppose my work and experience is mostly on land, but as a Palawa person and coming from a family of shell stringers, sea country and protecting that cultural practice and caring for our country here is really important. So I'm kind of involved in whichever spaces I can be. Yeah, so it's really good to hear from everyone that's introduced themselves and hear what everyone's working on. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we are able to observe that there's no corner of the ocean that we didn't cover. So we got to hear from the powerful work and knowledge at Taumako at Solomon Islands. Then we heard from Iceland and Finland, went over to Vanuatu and all the remote community and Yvette's work, and really strong voices from Tasmania, Vanessa and all the family joining up. That's your mob over there, so I believe. And then guys from Lanu Island, Pongosono and Hugu, and the United Kingdom giving us their best Hannibal roads. Can you believe that? There is something else going on, bubbling under in the UK, and it looks like this.
I tried to get out of this quite hard.
And on top of that, what a welcome from the Maori over there on the top of the South Island. And we have roughly 1 hour in this yarning circle, and in order for us to lead over to the exchanges that will now go on, we also heard very specific concerns like the cyclones and the typhoons and atomic waste on Lanui Island that they have to deal with. We have been there, we have seen it, it's real, and it's one of the most difficult things to think about, and all the other concerns, the seashells. And then at the start of this week, we heard from Greta about this. How do we have good arrivals? How do we not only react to species on the move, but respond from our specific cultural and governance and community viewpoints? And that's what I would like to talk about today, this biocultural restoration, that we in Snowchange would like to move the conversation from reacting to responding, and following up and honoring what our mother of species on the move, Greta Petschel, has given us, which is a profound statement. How do you have good arrivals? How do you welcome these that are now coming in? That might be completely new species, new animals, new events. And one of the things you have been hearing through the introductions is that Snowchange has tried to support both back home in my own village and all villages that are part of our network globally, the restoration of wetlands, peatlands, because we do believe that it is these wetlands and peatlands in the northern parts that will be safe havens in this century. There'll be the places where the newly arriving birds, for example, the butterflies, insects, will come and rest. They need safe havens as well as they arrive. And therefore, in order to welcome them, in order to provide them with a home or feeding area, nesting area, welcome them and say, hello, you are now, for example, in Selkie or Vanuatu or wherever, Aotearoa, you need to have a healthy land even this century, despite everything that's going on. And that's why this biocultural restoration has been the chosen mechanism by which we as an organization respond, Greta, to your arrival, that when we are rebuilding our landscapes again, whether it's the Usk in the UK or Selkie, Finland, or wherever, we are then rebuilding ourselves and doing the work that we heard from all of these folks, that it's a renaissance. We don't often get to hear that word in a catastrophic climate conference, but it's a renaissance and a resurgence, like Hugo said, despite the damages. And it is also one of the most exciting times to be alive, because you can really see how things are coming back and the new things are arriving. This is not to belittle the damages. They are, of course, there. But I also want to highlight a side of things that we rarely talk about, which is this joy. Joy, love, resurgence. That's how we cope. That's how we win. And that's how the peace comes. It's not going to come through fights or violence or something else. We may have to resist and continue to resist, but at the heart and at the core of the biocultural restoration and this rebuilding is love and joy. Because if we don't have that, I don't say those words lightly, I'm a Finn, we can be silent in 107 ways. So we don't have anything if we don't still have those things, joyful things going on. Now the floor is open, and we can have anybody joining the circle, and just raise your hand, and here is the first one, and introduce yourself and ask, share, comment, oppose, resist, respond, whatever you want to do. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm Becca Selden from Wellesley College near Boston, Massachusetts. And my main question is, when we're thinking about managing for arrivals and this biocultural restoration, how are you thinking about if the shell that you've relied on is one that is no longer able to live in that place? Or, from in my area, Pacific Northwest salmon, that's the basis of so much of the cultural practices. How do you navigate these shifting species and thinking about this biocultural restoration? And how can I, as an ally, sort of support that in my own, work with communities in where I am from?
Thank you. We're in very early stages of our investigations. Like I said, we discovered this within the last 2 years with our discussions with the University of Tasmania, with with Greta at IMS. We've got CSIRO. So we're the other thing that we're trying to do, which is something that I'm going to be putting together. We're actually going to get the women of our community together to talk about the issues that we're having. And at the moment, we have started doing some monitoring. We have started counting the shells. We can see visually that there's something wrong with the shells. So now we need to get the scientists to come along and test what it is. So we need to find out what is the black stuff that, I'll say black stuff because I'm not a scientist, the black stuff that's growing on the shells. There's a coral-like growth on them as well. We also have the algae on the kelp. We have fish that are disappearing. And now we have invasive species like the sea urchins that are coming in and the ascidians as well. So there's a whole lot of things that are happening. And because we also have pollution in the area that we have identified, and there's also development in the area that we've identified. So with the IPA that we're also trying to develop with the government, hopefully as a whole, we'll be able to get a little bit more traction in what we can actually do, and get some grants and funding to get the research done that we need. As a group of Canalaricha makers, which are the shell string makers, and families, we want to try and encourage the community to also monitor what's happening as well. So we've identified some places, and that's just from where I go. So now we're, as part of our Healthy Country and our group, our team, we want to get the ladies together across Tasmania to identify exactly what's happening. So we've got to take that step first. We need to actually get this group together and say, what have you seen? We have, like I said, we've got shells that are not there any longer. Do we start doing biosecurity, because someone's going from one piece of water to another piece of water? So there's a whole lot of stuff that we kind of are very, very in the early stages at the moment. So gathering the information that I have here has been amazing because it gives me more ideas of what we could potentially do. So step one is to just do that at this stage. So
yeah, thanks. So it sounds like despite there being a real importance of some specific shells, same as where I'm from, the wampum, which is part of their jewelry, is a single species. So when that single species is gone, but you're talking about like there's so many, it's holistic. So I mean, I guess that's one way to think about it. But I'd love to hear others on the floor if there's specific species that have these important cultural practices, and they may not be something that will stay with the future climate change. How do you approach that and think about that in this biocultural restoration?
Well, maybe I can lead in before others join in. One of the things to understand that people don't always appreciate is that the Pacific region, all of these folks, and up there in the lid of the world where it's supposed to be cool, but it's now melting, in the Boreal and the Arctic, these are the two largest ecoregions in the world. And therefore it has made a lot of sense to do this within Snowchange, for example, to enable decades-long relations between the Pacific and the Arctic, because some of the arriving folks, the birds, are coming from the ocean into the north, and there is quiet and cultural exchanges that can happen. For example, a song. I know that the Maori and the Pacific Northwest indigenous nations that are working with us are exchanging, for example, on carving, on songs, on knowledges. Who is this being that's arriving now, sunfish or something else? So there are all sorts of exciting networks, equally so in the Solomons with Taumago and the trading networks and the voyaging canoes and the journeys that they are revitalizing with Captain Luke and Peri's efforts to enable one word, which is agency. And that's what I would like to answer to you, that science and managers often look at these things of either extinction of salmon and loss through the lens of, let's call it, management. There is maybe critically endangered or extinct events and species. But one of the things that we tend to forget here is the question of cultural and indigenous agency and memory. Even if we might lose something, and a lot of these societies that, for example, the indigenous Tasmanians, they have been there for 40,000 years or 12,000 years. Not all is lost, even though at this particular moment, a high culturally relevant species might be moving or saying goodbye to us. So there are also mechanisms of saying goodbye, mechanisms of saying, we will remember you. Your power still rests with us. You are still with us, even if the destruction has taken you physically now for a while away from us. And I close by saying that because you are working in the Pacific Northwest, one of our examples of this is a place where we have been exchanging the Elwha River, one of the largest dam removals in the Pacific Northwest and the continental United States. It had 2 hydro stations, and close to the ocean, there's the lower Elwha tribe or indigenous peoples. And for 100 years, there was an old lady and a group of women that continued to say, the dams will come down. The dams will come down, because they flooded one of the cultural landscapes and important sites. And then starting 2011 and 2014, these elders, group of elders that had been doing the work and remembering the salmon, observed when the dams came down. And the salmon on the very first day were beyond the dams when they had been taken down. How could the salmon know after 100 years that there's good, suitable dating places up there in the headwaters? But they knew. And that's why it's also about memory and agency and profound ways of existence that are far beyond science. And now over to panel. Does somebody want to talk about loss and gain? Hugo or boys?
我想分享我们在族群的这种生活的一种经验。
I have a few experience to share.
我们在这个季节，到了这个季节，就是我们要钓鬼头刀的季节。那我们老人家会去溪里去捞虾子，他会在当中会一起捞到龙眼树的果子，没有成熟的果子。
Okay, it's a season for fishing the dolphin dragonfish, dolphin tigerfish. Okay, mahi mahi, and also going to a river to capture the shrimps and collect the fruits, seeds of longan tree, a tropical fruit, longan tree.
但是近年来，在这个季节当中就没有果子落下来，而是刚开花而已。
But now during this time, the season, there's no seeds that can be collected. It just started to blossom.
所以我们能够感受到整个花蕊的开花跟结果的时节延后。
So we also feel and observe the time shifting of the flowering because the climate change.
而往年从南部上来的飞鱼，几乎都在东边，我们会在以前就都在东边捕鱼。
And in the past, the flying fish come along from the south will gather at the east side of Lanyu.
但是今年飞鱼出现的地方几乎都在南部，完全没有再到东部这个地方。
But now the place they gather also changed. Only can be found at the southern part, yeah.
就老人家的观察，它是一个周期，它到一个周期之后又会出现在某个地方，但是近10年了，还没有完全出现在东部这个地方。
Okay, based on the experience of the elderly, they think that might be a pattern. It's a natural ring. They might change, but it will come back. But now, if after a decade passed, it doesn't return.
所以我们能够从花蕊的开花或是飞羽的迁徙当中，感受到了物种的迁徙或是整个环境的变化。
Okay, so they also feel that the species on the move, the change from the flowering time and then the migration of the flying fish. That's all.
I supplement a little. This is another longan. This is called the Pacific lychee. Yeah. So maybe in your island, maybe Solomon was it matua or taba, maybe. Yeah. And clearly, the fishing ground say every year the harvesting of migrant fishers, the fishing ground is changing. The change activity is changing every. And Sanjay shared that the elder will mention that it should be because we have a 6 tribal community. So it will first come to your place, then next time to my place. But he say that industrial decade mostly is on the western side, not on the eastern side. This common for us, and also the phonological change, say the flowering time or something, the fruiting time change. And the calendar actually is also supplemented by such phonological activities, events to adjust what we do or nothing. I want to supplement a little the work of our brother Shanjayud in last decade. Because this important when you are talking, how we respond, how we facing. But first, we should come back to strengthening ourselves first for our younger generation. So the work of Sanjay last decade is on building the capacity of giving names for the younger generation. New thing come or older thing come, we need to remember all the names. So his work is on restoring the traditional place name. The second is you also need to have the capacity to give name to your younger generation, to your son, to your daughter. Otherwise you forget. And what's the meaning? You give name. And then also we should restore. Because now the tourist, the immigrant, they use the Chinese words, Mandarin. If they forget the name, the ancestors give to the marine creature, to the forest, the animals, to the field, the plants, then we forget our knowledge. So his work is on first the place name, then how to give the human name, then restore all the fisher names, the forest name, plant in forest, in the field, and all the activities, say the ceremony, seasonal work. Yeah. And I think this is such kind of work is what I say that to restore the human nature spirit bond. And this prepare us for any change, including species on the move.
Yvette, do you want to share a few words? What do you see in the communities where you work to rebuild and restore, or what works, or what are the positive things that you have observed?
I won't share on that, but I want to share in one of the experience that I've learned with a researcher from France. He came over to Vanuatu and do his research in one of the species, the shell species in one of the community in Vanuatu. It's in the very remote area. And one of the things that he, after his research, he came and present his findings. And most of the terms that he used during his presentation is mostly in scientific terms. But remember that he presented, and also the research is carried out in Vanuatu. And the people, even though they, some of the people within the conference room who attended the conference are educated, and some are all not educated and not researchers, don't have experience in research. They were listening, and I was there listening as well. And I really want to ask him a question on how did he run his questionnaire within the community itself. And it's, I think my question is a bit challenging him in terms of the terms that he used within the community. So the question that I asked was, I appreciate the research and the information that he provided, but then I questioned him about what is the exact approach that you gave to the community to collect that information out from them? Because at the end of the day, that information or that whatever research that you did within the community, it will benefit the community. And did they answer your question? Did they, the specific question that you answered, did they answer the question in terms of the scientific terms that you used? And he was like, oh, we work with the department and they are the one who do the translation and all sorts. And one of the high-level person within the government, I think he copied that respond, and then he come back to me and tell me. I think this is an important area that we need to pick on. When we invite people to come into the community to run their research, they need to really contextualize the questions and approach on how they could carry out the research within the community. And this is something that really triggered also the professor from Africa who was within that conference. So with your question, I think it's important. I don't know if this is a good way to put it, but it's important for scientific researchers when we get to the community, please appreciate or honor the community and also appreciate their customs, whatever they have, so that the information you get, you will also help them in return when you go back, have your thesis or the paper published. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for a very profound and important message. It may be pertinent to just highlight that globally there are now mechanisms. One of them is called free, prior, and informed consent by the United Nations and other academic processes where when you do that, what you just told us, or when researchers arrive in community, even if it's not self-evident, all of those folks own their knowledges and they own their culture. And therefore these mechanisms like free and prior informed consent are bare minimum of trying to get to that good place. Thank you also, boys, about the cultural rebuilding. And on that note, I was asking Betty if you could share a few words about something equally profound. In her island, they have kept the Pacific navigational knowledge, and now they have enabled a school and community-led efforts to revitalize that. Could you say a few words about the work you have done on cultural?
Yeah, thank you. We call our cultural school the Taumako Voyaging and Cultural School. And we, in the past 3 years, we have built a training vessel, a traditional training vessel where Taumako people used to sail inter-island from one island to the other. And it was completed last year. And what is to happen next is for sea trial with the traditional vessel and people learning how to navigate using the boat, to use the stars and moon to guide them to sail. So we have been doing this since 2021, and it wasn't easy, especially when the culture has like mixed with other thinking and things like that. So it wasn't easy, but then interestingly, I've noticed or I've learned from these elders what they do. Like maybe it's our belief in myth or something like that, but our ancestors helped them to revive those knowledge. Something they forget, and sometimes they would just think or chant, and those rituals or those practices would come back. And the way of what we call tying the like how they tie the different parts of the canoe will come back to them. They will remember everything and they will do it. So it's quite interesting to me as well as to other Taumakoans how these practices coming back just through meditation or heavy thinking and connecting the present to the ancestors, and these things are reviving, coming back to the people, and they are doing it. Yeah. So in 2020, our plan for the future with this voyaging is to reconnect or retrace what our ancestors or where the ancestors have sailed in the past. So two voyages we'd like to make, that by 2028, if we complete the ocean-going vessel, the bigger version of what we have now, and then we'll sail either to Toba province in Vanuatu to reconnect with the Toba people from Vanuatu, like our ancestors in the past have done, or to sail to where is this? New Island, yeah? New Island in Papua New Guinea. So those are the two goals that we are yet to achieve after building the ocean-going tepuke, what we call tepuke, yeah. So we are trying to revive those practices and tracing back the footsteps of our ancestors while we are learning to navigate using the moon and stars and reading the waves, patterns and everything. We also have other researchers have come to work on Taumako with this since 1996. And the elders have taught them about the traditional compass that they used. Yeah. And recently I was in Germany at a conference too. Other scientists, navigators have come to discuss the traditional navigation of compass. So they have come, what I've heard from them, there's someone studying the compass that Captain Cook had used compared to what Taumako people are using. And they have noticed that the Taumako compass, traditional compass, is more accurate than what Captain Cook had used. And you know, that made me feel proud, you know, of our ancestors from Taumako. I think that's it. And while I'm still holding the mic, I would like to share my experience on Indigenous conservation effort. And I have learned a lot of things while doing this with the community. And there are other good things that come out from when we were planning and site planning, where to plant the mangroves and what to do, you know, just. And I have learned that for us small islands, we are not just doing it for fun or just doing it for recognition or something. Actually, we are doing this for not just for satisfaction, but it's our life, you know. Our survival depend on this conservation effort. And restoration of this mangrove is important to us island people. We have felt the effect of climate change, I think, more than anyone has ever felt, especially with sea level rise. And with small islands like Taumako, our highest peak is about 250 meters above sea level. And from how I'm anticipating is like maybe within the next 20 years or less, our people will move up into the mountains. Because where we are living on now is not even 1 kilometers. I think it's about 20 meters from the sea to the end of the hill. So that those places will be, flat places will be washed away, and then we'll move up to the mountains. So our effort in restoration of this mangrove is not just doing something that people will see what we are doing or just to get funding from Snowchange. But we are trying to respond to how we will survive. Because we are losing our fish, our people are collecting the rocks from the sea and building their stone walls to stop sea level rise from coming to the houses. So these things that people do in response to this sea level rise is also causing other impacts to the coastal areas around us. So while I was, I think I told Tero in one of my communication, like, Tero, that money you gave me is not enough. It's not enough to what I'm planning to do. Because when we were planning all this, we were thinking about building seawalls, about responding to the mud and silt that has accumulated in the lagoon. How can we remove those silt from the lagoon? And yesterday I learned something from someone telling me, like, maybe if you plant your mangrove, this silt and mud will be removed from the lagoon. Or maybe your solution is not planting mangrove, it's something else. Or maybe you have lost these mangrove patches because of climate change of temperature or things like that, and it's not man-made. That your people have not cut down the mangroves, but maybe the mangroves are lost because of other things. Yeah, so that's what I'd like to share. Like, these conservation efforts are not just something that we Indigenous people do just for recognition, but it's our life. We depend so much on this to improve, to reconnect with the land and the sea like our ancestors have done. If we do not restore this mangrove, then our fish will be gone, our shells, everything will be gone. And we will no longer, maybe no fish on Taumako in the next 20 years. And also while planning, I have noticed that when we were planning, there are other ideas that comes into our minds of building bridges from these islands to the next so that we won't destroy the mangrove. So all these new ideas of innovation coming into place. So that's why I was telling Tero, that funding is not enough. So I'm trying to apply to other organizations for funding. But after I've told Tero that, I've noticed that no, when you involve the community, it would need less money because the community members all will be involved. And sometimes all of us don't need money to do something that the community will benefit from. It's just someone moving forward arranging things, making things work, and people will contribute to the effort. Thank you.
Thank you. And here is next.
Is it working? Oh, yes. Good day, Good day, everyone. Thank you so much for all the insight that has been shared. And I just have a comment and a question based on what has been shared, because I feel like most of the things, in as much as I'm from a different region, but then I share sentiment with mostly what Pero has shared now and what Mrs. Chian mentioned earlier. So, so I come from South Africa, but then one of my grandfather is from Mozambique, which is right next to South Africa. So recently, earlier this year, there was an impact of the cyclone because Mozambique is like, it lies closer to the Indian Ocean, and they mostly get affected by the cyclones. So it's not a common thing, but then recently due to climate change, that has been a problem. And this area, in as much as there's the marine system side of the thing, where like the cyclone affected it, like it started there because it moved from Madagascar, then towards Mozambique. So there's also the savanna land where there's animals that are there. And during this cyclone time, there were a lot of floods. So what my grandfather mentioned once was that, so normally, basically he would know what's gonna happen. Like if it's gonna rain, he will see the animals, because I think where he lives, it's more like it's a farm area, but which still has like a lot of those animals roaming around. So he would notice the movement. So if maybe, okay, the springboks, then they're starting to disappear around that time, you'll see that, okay, I think it's gonna rain, or so he still uses those indigenous ways of predicting the weather, and also like predicting that, okay, maybe in the river there'll be more of this redfish compared to the other one, which I found interesting because for the most part, like when he says something, even though his evidence would be, I wouldn't want to call it means, but those traditional beliefs that they have, most of the time, even though like, okay, since I studied science and now obviously I believe that I think different from him, but most of the time I'm like, oh, actually he's not lying. But now what I observed is that due to climate change, as time goes on, like most of those beliefs or his predicting systems no longer apply. Because previously, before maybe climate change, like this, maybe how things or the seasonal trends were predictable because they know that, okay, it will be winter, it will be like this, the animals will be like this. And they will also have traditional norms that, okay, during this season, you are forbidden from fishing this type of fish or from hunting this type of animal. And okay, they'll just use the traditional means that, okay, it's just a taboo or whatever. But then when I think about it, I think it was their indigenous way of conservation that, okay, during this season, maybe these fish, it's where they are spawning, and maybe you don't wanna target the larvae or kill young fish or something like that. So which I found interesting. But then now the question that I have is that in as much as we now have science that does the same predictions that, okay, due to climate change, this fish is now like getting endangered and all that, therefore maybe they should stop overfishing this particular type of fish and all that. So all of that information is communicated through publications and all that. So my question is that, like, how do we ensure that the scientific communication is integrated or communicated to the indigenous people? Because in as much as we'll get that scientific knowledge, but then the people that get the direct impact and who might also impact the outcome are the Indigenous people. And I just wanted to ask, I think specifically to Mr. Sean, like, how do the Indigenous people respond to the changes? So when they now start to see that, okay, I went to the river, I did not find the fish that I'm expecting to find, how do they respond to those changes? And how, on your side, ma'am, like when you, during your efforts of trying to get the community to engage, what is their response? In as much as they have their own cultural beliefs, and also there's like scientific knowledge that informs that, okay, this is happening and you need to do this to restore. Thank you.
I'm not a scientific person. And before coming here, I even I asked Terrell, what kind of conference is that? And Terrell said, it's more a scientific thing. So no, I'm not going because I'm not a science person. And being here is like when presentation is all about data or all this finding, it's quite difficult for me to understand and grasp until I think 2% on the second day presented and gave solution to how we can control the sea urchins expansion or multiplying so much on our reef. So those then it made me think like, also that's how we can connect our conservation effort to using scientific knowledge or using those knowledge that these scientists have found to like combat these things that we see. Like, for example, the sea urchins. I've seen that on Taumako for the past, I think 6 months, there's been too much sea urchin on the reef. And just listening to this person, I don't remember that person, but I think she's from Utah as well. And thank you to her. Yeah, thank you. Like she was saying that using the lobsters to control the population of sea urchin. That's very good. I will use that. I will share that knowledge with my people to conserve or to get rid of the sea urchin, because that shows us that the reef is not healthy. So I think there's a connection with indigenous conservation effort with science. We need those knowledge as well as our traditional knowledge. Now, there's one thing that I also encounter with my current conservation effort in restoring the mangrove, now wetland, because there's the silt in the sea, in the lagoon in front of the village. Now, how can we get rid of those mud and silt? Because now it's knee deep. And that place used to be seagrass and all this. And that's why we used to find the fish hiding among the grass during low tide at night. That's where we collect our shells and fish. But now it's full of mud and silt. And so when I was planning with my small group where we were trying to plan the restoration project, and then we came up with something like, because Taumako is so steep, and we feel that all these streams are also carrying down the ground or the erosion from the, washing down the soil from the mountains down into the sea. So that is why that mud accumulation in the lagoon is so fast that within 6 months, it's already knee deep. So we try to get the villagers or the people on Taumako, when they do gardening up on the slopes, you put, like traditionally, we don't throw away the leaves. We only collect the sticks and throw them away, burn them, or do something like that. So now we are encouraging them, like, you don't throw away the leaves or the sticks from the trees that you cut down when clearing places for your gardens. You put the sticks along the slopes so that when it rains, the soil gets trapped by these sticks that you put along the slopes, so that we control how much erosion of soil is carried down into the streams. So yeah, so those are things that I've come across, and I don't know if I answered your question. Thank you.
Annukka, and then over to there.
So I worked for a long time in scientific communication for projects, and I think in my experience, research grossly underestimates the amount of work that is required in science communication. It happens all the time in projects that there's no real budget or effort into translating that knowledge to the people who actually need the knowledge. And I think just acknowledging that the science impact doesn't happen just miraculously on its own. The stakeholders, they are not gonna come knocking on your door asking for what is your research result on this topic. Maybe sometimes do, but very, very rarely. So it needs people, it needs organizations that actually make it possible. For example, today that we have much more diverse group of people here learning from your science. This requires work, it requires people, and it requires effort. And I think that's a good take-home message. So when you're planning your projects, always include this aspect in the work.
Okay. Oh, I speak Chinese, okay? Yes. 我们今天来到这边，主要就是因为物种的迁徙能够考量或认知到在地知识跟人文以及原住民在这边扮演重要的角色。
The reason why we are here today is because that we wanted to know how science can get involved of the local knowledge.
还有很多学者，我这几天听了很多学者发表物种的一些想法，可能在某种程度比较传统知识的生态的讨论会比较少。
And from what I have learned through this conference, I feel like there's not a lot of emphasizing on the fundamental kind of research.
或者是说原住民的知识在这样子科学的研究不算是一种科学吗？
Or how their indigenous knowledge things not regard as a science to them.
还有另外，原住民在土地治理权，尤其在台湾已经好久，上百年、上千年了，但在这样子的台湾的生态研究其实都缺少了原住民里面的参与。
And as a fact of that Taiwanese Aboriginal people have been live on the island for hundreds, even thousand years, but when doing research or management, the indigenous people are rarely being involved.
Yeah, I would like to show the two cases, 一个 about the government and about the academic collaboration. 第一个是我们兰屿有一个叫珠光凤蝶的保育，是跟台师大合作。那这个合作方式跟我们在地的文化虽然没有很大的连结，但是跟他们在做合作时他们很尊重我们在地的老师或者是族人的想法。
There are two cases. The first one is on an endemic butterfly species. It's called bird-wing butterflies. And the research team are from National Taiwan Normal University. And along the way they're doing research is nothing related to their traditional lifestyle, not related to the way they treat the butterfly, but the researchers are highly respect to them as the teacher and then respect their opinions.
OK， 然后我举这个例子是关于原住民会关心这些物种，主要是跟它的文化的关联性强或弱。
and how Indigenous people emphasize how they care, how much they care about the species. It might related to the these species can contribute or into their culture. How strongly it related to their culture.
OK，再来一个案例是，台湾政府做了一个保育政策，是关于砗磲被禁止采伐的案例。
And there's another case, it's on the giant clam that the Taiwanese government prohibit the collection on giant clam.
他只看到数量的减少，就要直接做一个保育政策的制定，而忽略了兰屿人在于文化的连结以及文化的惯习的使用。
Okay, so the government noticed the reduction of the population size of giant clam, so they set up this protection act on giant clam, but they ignore how connected is this species to the Da'u tribe culture.
所以我相信，来自世界的一些生物的专家，或者可以就是对于政府一些政策能够影响到他们的一些所作所为。
So I think that all the experts here, the research you are doing can have a really huge influence on the management, on the impact to the government.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hannibal.
It's a really good question, I think, and I'll obviously not speak from a specific perspective, but more from an anthropological perspective of it's easy to forget that we're all involved in knowledge production in different ways, and that happens differently. And as you were asking your question, I had our Snowchange colleague Miguel from the Wendat First Nation in my head. He hates the term Indigenous knowledge. He says it's Indigenous science. And if you want to be accurate linguistically, he's absolutely correct, because science just comes from the Latin scientia, which means to know, to be sentient. So we might consider that a key principle in having our knowledge for these changing times is porosity. So to have porous ways of knowing, interdisciplinary ways of knowing. And I think that is, you can see examples in societies around the world all throughout history, that in times of stress, porosity of borders becomes extremely important, because exactly as we're all talking about with species, people, ideas, everything that we produce, all the knowledge that we have needs to flow more freely and be in solidarity more freely. And I think as far as that porosity goes, what is incumbent upon scientists and all of us of any stripe, anybody who is creating and sharing knowledge for these new realities that we find ourselves in, is that we try as far as possible to institute that interdisciplinarity and that porosity as early as possible. Because what I'm hearing is like there's this idea that like there's Indigenous knowledge being produced here, you know, and whatever, some, you know, however that's happening, there's science being produced here. Where do they meet? Somewhere down the road. And it doesn't have to be like that, because when you come up with questions, you can say, how is Indigenous peoples and Indigenous knowledge involved in that? How is research and all of the knowledge production for species on the move or whatever it is produced collectively as standard from day one, so that you're not getting somewhere down the road and thinking, how can I communicate this, or how does this make a difference? And I think also there's this notion that, okay, Indigenous knowledge is based on this world of stasis that has always been as it is. We've heard from our colleagues in Tasmania. I mean, they're working on areas that their people already knew that were reclaimed by the sea thousands of years ago. So the adaptive capacities of Indigenous knowledge is one of the greatest strengths all around the world. So to consider them perhaps incapable of changing or requiring these outside inputs maybe overstates the importance of the slower forms of knowledge production that sort of formal academized science does. So I think we can see this as a knowledge exchange, this like porous border where the rapid adaptive capacity of Indigenous knowledge and science can meet and be mutually strengthening, rather than seeing as one knowledge system stepping into another and asking, okay, how does that happen? It should be, how does this become a much more porous, interdisciplinary ways of knowing together, science together, and considering a much more generous definition of science, I think.
This is the moment where instead of 12 minutes for a talk, we had 120 minutes. And as all of you here, we should have 1,200 minutes to get to the real things. And as with all good things, this one now will slowly come to an end. And I know there are folks in the audience that want to have a chat, so please come forward after when we close, and you can do that. But I have powers above me, or at least on the same level, that tell me that I have to stop at 12:30. So at least we got the 120 minutes. And I will say very shortly from our unit's view, and then I would like to ask Lola, as our elder on the meeting, to say closing words if she will. This is how it looks like. This is how it's done. Okay? This is how it's done. We come together and we listen and we share, and they will resist you, and then we will win. And to paraphrase Gandhi. So that's how we try to rebuild. You have heard now from incredible women leading the work over in Taumago Island, the Solomons, Vanuatu, Iceland, all the men over there at the Pongosono Tau, Tasmania, UK. Think about what Hal has to do. Think about that young fella doing this in England and Wales, not all alone, but that shows courage. And I just want to recognize that when we think of the UK and England, you have your perceptions and what they did. And still he's at it. He's still trying for peace with the land, with the river, and with the folks. And I just want to recognize the young fella here doing that in his own landscape. But I first and foremost wanted to thank the audience for coming out today to see how we try to be at it, both at home and abroad. So Snowchange is a fragile network of these kind of folks. And please join us for the film. There's a female fisher featured in a documentary film at 4:30 from our place, Carolina, that will talk about her experience as a future elder in training, even though she's now 30, but she's one of the future elders to come, and very profound story in the film. So therefore, thank you for all coming out. And I come back to the work of peace. No matter how bad it will get, we are still at it. And we love you just like you respect and have come here to share with us. And that's how we try to go forwards despite the times, no matter where we are. Thank you, Kiitos. And now I would like to ask Lola to offer us closing words as Indigenous Tasmanian elder and internationally recognized knowledge holder and key person. If you will honor us with your few words to close this yarning circle. Thank you, and thank you, Mauri, also over there in Aotearoa. Lola, please.
Thank you. Thank you. As an elder from Lutjewitja, I'm very privileged to be able to do this today. I've been making shell necklaces for 35 years, and hopefully Vanessa's got some images there to show you. And I've taught 4 generations of my family. But when we think of what's happening with this, suddenly finding a disease on our shells and not thinking, oh, wow, we're not scientists, we don't know anything about it. But culturally, we followed the changes in our environment. And I'll give you one example, very simple example. I used to take my family to the island, and Monique's been involved in this as one of my great nieces. We would collect as a family for a few days because we look after our environment as well. And we would maybe come back with 5 half snack bags of shells. This year, Vanessa and I went and we came back with half of one snack bag. Now, the 3 areas that we normally collect from, they've all been affected, I'd say, by, we called it the climate and global warming, the pollution, and other species from the sea that's come down to Tasmania that normally can't live here because the water's too cold. So that gives us, from me as a visual person, a visual artist, they are some of the first things that we could talk to our women about. And I'm really proud to have heard from other people talking about how they would revive their what's happening in their culture, land and seas. And we do that by viewing and seeing and feeling what's happening. And then we're on the verge of asking for advice now, or there's been lots of conversations around that. But just listening to a few today, it's interesting that this seems to be happening on a wider scale than what we first understood and what's caused it. But for me, proud to say a big thank you to be able to join through technology and talk to you there as a Tasmanian Aboriginal woman, auntie. I'm also Dr. Auntie Lola, been given an honorary doctorate for 30 years of work that I've done through culture and practices and done videos and still working on films. I've got some work happening in London very soon in a big exhibition from Brisbane. So we don't stop. Vanessa and I are working on projects, but I'm looking at working on projects that will save our sea, and we're looking more at designing projects within the community and working with elders. But my main word is thank you for sharing your knowledge and your personalities, and it's just great to hear what is really, thinking the auntie from the islands there, oh gosh, I wish we could have a conversation together in the same room. Maybe we will one day. But thank you for your time and effort and what you've put into this. And from us here in Tasmania, my young women and people that I work with, Fiona, Monique and Alice and Zoe, Walika, which means goodbye in Palawakani.
Thank you. Let's give a big hand to the panel and all the people. And kia ora, Aotearoa, thank you. And thank you for opening with the Maori sentences, and have a great rest of the event. Thanks for coming out. Come to the film at 4:30 or something. Thanks.